Good morning, everyone. Let me begin with a simple truth. Wealth is not an event, it's a journey. And like any journey, it leaves signs along the way, clues that you're moving in the right direction. Today, I want to highlight those signs because sometimes we need a reminder that progress is being made, even if the destination feels far off. One of the most powerful and undeniable signs that you're on the path to wealth is when your mindset shifts from short-term survival to long-term vision. In fact, this change in thinking marks a turning point in many people's lives, a moment where they stop reacting to life and start designing it. When you begin to think beyond today, beyond this week, or even this year, you're already distancing yourself from the habits and mindsets that keep so many people stuck in financial struggle. Thinking long-term doesn't just mean saving for retirement or setting aside money for a rainy day. It's a fundamental shift in how you approach every decision, from how you earn to how you spend to how you invest your time and resources. You start asking different questions. Instead of what can I afford right now, you ask what outcome will this choice create 5 years from now? Instead of how can I avoid discomfort today, you ask what sacrifice today will lead to freedom tomorrow. People who think long-term understand the power of compounding, not just in money, but in effort, discipline, and growth. They know that wealth isn't usually the result of one big breakthrough or a sudden windfall. More often, it's the outcome of consistent actions repeated over months and years. A small amount invested regularly, a skill practiced daily, a relationship nurtured consistently. All of these things may seem insignificant in the moment, but over time they grow. That's the quiet engine of wealth. And if you've started to operate from that understanding, you're further ahead than you think. When you think long-term, you start valuing delayed gratification. This alone sets you apart in a world obsessed with immediacy. Social media, advertising, and cultural messaging constantly tell us that happiness is found in the now, in the newest phone, the next vacation, the instant reward. But you're learning to say no to things that only feel good momentarily because you're reserving your energy and resources for something greater. You no longer see a new car as a symbol of success if it comes with long-term debt. You might skip the fancy dinner now, not because you can't afford it, but because you're choosing to invest in assets, not liabilities. This mindset also influences how you approach your career in business. Instead of looking for a quick promotion or an easy paycheck, you start thinking in terms of skill building, reputation, and long-term value. You realize that the most important investment you can make early on is in yourself, your knowledge, your ability to solve problems, your emotional intelligence, your network. These aren't things that pay off overnight, but they are the foundation of a wealthy future. If you're spending time today learning a new skill, working on a business that may not yet be profitable, or building relationships that may take years to bear fruit, you are already walking the long-term path. And let's not forget the emotional aspect of long-term thinking. It takes a great deal of emotional maturity to resist the pull of short-term pleasure in favor of long-term gain. You need to have vision, you need to have self-control, and you need to have faith, not just in the external world, but in yourself. You need to believe that your efforts will eventually be rewarded, even if you can't see the results yet. That kind of belief is rare, and if you have it, nurture it. It's one of the most valuable forms of capital you'll ever possess. Long-term thinkers also tend to become strategic planners. They create financial goals that stretch over 5, 10, even 20 years. They set targets not just for income, but for net worth, passive income, debt reduction, and investments. They understand the difference between being busy and being productive. They're not interested in spinning their wheels or chasing trends. They're focused on what actually moves the needle. That might mean investing in real estate instead of spending on luxury. It might mean starting a business instead of working overtime for someone else's dream. It might mean building a brand slowly and authentically instead of going viral once and fading away. All of these choices are rooted in a deep commitment to the long game. You also begin to make peace with the idea that not everything in life will happen quickly. Patience becomes one of your greatest assets. You're not rattled by small setbacks because you've zoomed out. You see the bigger picture. You know that one bad month doesn't define your year, and one failed investment doesn't define your financial future. That resilience, born from perspective, gives you a steady hand when others panic. It allows you to stay focused when others are distracted. In a world where most people quit after a few weeks, you persist for years, and that's what makes all the difference. Relationships are also impacted by this shift. You start investing in the people who align with your values and your vision. You choose to surround yourself with those who support growth, who challenge you, who think ahead like you do. You let go of relationships based solely on convenience or entertainment, and instead build bonds rooted in purpose and shared ambition. These kinds of relationships don't just support you emotionally, they often lead to opportunities, partnerships, and ideas that directly contribute to your wealth journey. Even the way you view money itself begins to evolve. You stop seeing it as something you earn just to spend. You begin to see money as a tool, a vehicle that when handled wisely can give you freedom, choices, and time. That's the real prize. Long-term thinkers understand that wealth isn't about appearing rich, It's about being free. It's not about owning more things. It's about owning your time, your decisions, and your future. If you've reached the point where you're thinking beyond this month's bills, beyond this year's vacation, and beyond impressing people who don't matter, you are on the path to wealth. That mindset shift is the seed from which everything else grows. It will guide your habits, shape your goals, and protect you from the chaos of short-term distractions. So when you notice yourself making decisions based not on how they'll make you feel today, but on where they'll take you tomorrow, pause and recognize you're doing something most people don't. You're thinking like the wealthy. And that, more than any dollar amount in your account, is the clearest sign that you're heading exactly where you need to go. A powerful and often underestimated sign that you're truly on the path to wealth is when you begin to pay yourself first. It's a simple concept, but don't be fooled by its simplicity. This idea, often repeated in personal finance books and by financial advisors, is more than just a budgeting trick. It's a mindset shift, a statement of priority, and one of the clearest indicators that you are taking control of your financial destiny. To pay yourself first means that before you spend on anything else, rent, food, subscriptions, shopping, entertainment, bills, you allocate a portion of your income to your future self. That can take the form of savings, investments, retirement funds, or even reinvesting in your own growth through education or business. The moment you receive your paycheck, your first move is not to pay others or satisfy short-term desires. It's to secure your long-term well-being. This habit transforms the way you view money. Instead of being a passive participant in your financial life, just working to earn and then spending until the next payday, you become active and intentional. You start treating money not just as something to consume, but as a tool to build. You shift from being a consumer to becoming a creator, an investor, a planner. And that mental transition is what separates the wealthy from those who remain in survival mode. For many people, money comes in and immediately goes out. Expenses are waiting, bills are due, needs must be met, and wants are always whispering. The default behavior is to cover all obligations first, indulge a little if anything is left, and then think about saving later. But in most cases, later never comes. Life gets in the way. Emergencies happen. The leftover money is rarely enough, or worse, non-existent. And so the cycle continues. But the moment you start flipping this equation and put yourself first, you interrupt that cycle. You begin to build a new one, a wealth-building cycle that compounds over time. Paying yourself first is about prioritizing your future over your present. That doesn't mean living in constant deprivation. It doesn't mean refusing to enjoy life. In fact, it's the opposite. It's about ensuring that the joy and comfort you seek today are also available to you in the years ahead. It's about living with intention. You begin to ask yourself, do I want short-term pleasure or long-term freedom? And increasingly, you choose freedom. It also requires discipline. There will always be things you could spend your money on, big and small. A new phone, another streaming service, a weekend trip, takeout instead of cooking. These things aren't inherently bad, but if they consistently come before your own future, they quietly erode your potential. When you pay yourself first, you learn to distinguish between what feels good now and what will feel right later. And when you've done it long enough, something amazing happens. Your sense of security grows. Your confidence in your financial situation strengthens. You stop being anxious about every bill or unexpected expense because you've built a cushion. That cushion turns into a foundation. That foundation becomes a platform for wealth. This habit also builds consistency, and consistency is everything in wealth building. It's not about how much you can save in 1 month, but how regularly you do it. Even if you're only saving 5% or a small amount of your income, the act of doing it every single time without fail develops a pattern. And that pattern sends a message to your brain and your bank account that you are in control. When you pay yourself first, you also learn to live on what remains. This is key. You begin to adjust your lifestyle to fit what's left after saving, not the other way around. This doesn't mean cutting out joy or being cheap. It means being resourceful and mindful. You start to question impulse purchases. You weigh the long-term cost of short-term spending. Over time, this leads to smarter decisions, fewer regrets, and a deeper understanding of value. But perhaps the most profound part of paying yourself first is what it says about your relationship with yourself. It means you believe your future is worth investing in. It means you see yourself as valuable, not just as a worker or a spender, but as a person with dreams, plans, and the power to shape your own path. You're no longer at the mercy of circumstance. You're building autonomy. Every dollar you save or invest becomes a vote for the life you want, not the life you're stuck in. You also start to appreciate the true power of compound interest. Every contribution to your savings or investment account isn't just money sitting in a jar, it's a seed. And with time, those seeds grow. They multiply. A dollar saved today might become $2, $5, or $10 in the future, depending on how you use it. That's the magic of paying yourself first. You're not just preserving money, you're leveraging it. You're setting it to work for you. This principle also prepares you for opportunity. Life inevitably presents moments where an investment, business venture, or big decision comes along. Most people miss these moments because they aren't financially ready. But when you've been paying yourself first, you're building not just security, but also agility. You can act when the moment is right. You can take calculated risks. You're not constantly recovering from financial strain. You're advancing from a position of strength. And it's worth noting, paying yourself first doesn't require a high income. It's a practice anyone can begin, regardless of what they earn. In fact, those who adopt it early, even on modest incomes, often build more wealth over time than those who wait until they're earning enough, because the habit matters more than the amount. Earning more can help, but if you don't have the discipline to save when you earn a little, chances are you won't suddenly develop it when you earn a lot. Money doesn't change behavior, it amplifies it. And that's why the habit of paying yourself first is so powerful. It sets the tone, it builds the discipline, it teaches you to lead your money rather than follow it. Eventually, this habit becomes second nature. It becomes automatic. You don't even think twice. You save, you invest, you plan ahead. And as your financial base grows, so does your confidence. You realize that wealth isn't just about having more money, it's about having more control, more options, and more peace of mind. So, if you've started to pay yourself first, even in small amounts, you're already practicing one of the most reliable wealth-building behaviors that exists. You're choosing yourself. You're taking care of your future. And you're proving day by day that financial freedom isn't just a dream. It's a decision you make every time you put yourself first. One of the clearest, most powerful signs that you are on the path to wealth is when you develop an insatiable desire to learn, not because someone told you to, not because it's required by school or a boss, but because something within you is hungry for knowledge, for understanding, for answers. When you begin to actively seek out books, videos, podcasts, conversations, and experiences that expand your mind, you are engaging in one of the most transformative behaviors available to any human being, self-education. And in the world of wealth building, self-education is not optional, it is essential. You may have noticed that your habits have changed. Instead of mindlessly scrolling through social media or binge-watching shows for hours, you've started consuming content that actually teaches you something. You've swapped out empty entertainment for substance. Your bookshelf has grown heavier. Your podcast feed is full of discussions on investing, real estate, entrepreneurship, psychology, economics, mindset, and habits. You don't just want to be entertained anymore. You want to grow. You want to understand how money works. You want to understand how people work. You want to understand how successful people think, how they make decisions, how they navigate challenges. You no longer want to be left in the dark. You want to turn on every light. This shift isn't just academic, it's personal. There's a moment when something inside you changes, when you look at your current life and say, I want more. Not just more money, but more clarity, more ability, more confidence. And you recognize that the path to getting more starts with learning. When you truly commit to personal growth, you stop waiting for someone else to show you the way. You become your own guide. You realize that every answer you're looking for has been written down, spoken aloud, or taught by someone somewhere. The only question is, are you willing to look for it? This obsession with learning is also a reflection of humility. It means you've acknowledged that you don't know everything, and more importantly, that you don't need to. Wealthy people understand that the smartest thing you can do is become a student for life. They don't pretend to have all the answers. They ask better questions. They stay curious. They constantly upgrade their thinking the way others upgrade their phones. If you found yourself reading biographies of successful people, diving into financial literacy, or experimenting with new skills and ideas, then you're already practicing the mindset of the wealthy. And the most beautiful part? The more you learn, the more you realize how much you don't know. But instead of that feeling discouraging you, it energizes you. Because every new insight opens another door. Every new strategy you discover becomes a tool in your financial toolbox. Maybe you've learned about the power of compound interest, or how passive income works, or why owning assets is better than spending on liabilities. Maybe you've discovered how the tax system can be navigated in your favor, or how to spot a good investment opportunity. These are things that aren't taught in traditional school, but they're essential if you want to build and preserve wealth. And it's not just about money. Your obsession with learning starts bleeding into other areas of your life. You start studying time management, health, communication, leadership, negotiation, marketing, emotional intelligence. You begin to see that wealth isn't just financial, it's holistic. It includes how well you manage your time, how well you understand people, how well you control your emotions, and how well you can lead, serve, or influence others. You realize that every area of growth contributes to your ability to earn, keep, and grow your money. You start working on your mind like others work on their bodies. You build mental strength, flexibility, and endurance. This obsession also makes you more resourceful. You don't just passively accept problems, you research solutions, you experiment, you learn from failures instead of being defeated by them. You treat setbacks as case studies, and when something doesn't work out, your response isn't, I give up. It's, what can I learn from this? That mindset alone separates you from the majority. Most people look for comfort. You look for progress. And the more you learn, the more capable you become. You start developing what many call earned confidence, not the kind that comes from luck, but the kind that comes from doing the work. You also start to recognize patterns. You see how certain behaviors, decisions, and strategies lead to wealth while others lead to stagnation or debt. You begin to connect dots that others miss. You understand why some businesses thrive and others fail. You start thinking in systems, probabilities, and long-term outcomes. This is the point where learning stops being just informative and starts becoming transformative. You begin to make smarter decisions, not by accident, but by design. And you stop fearing complexity. At first, financial topics might seem intimidating. Terms like diversification, equity, index funds, or capital gains might sound like another language. But the more you expose yourself to these ideas, the more familiar and manageable they become. What once seemed confusing becomes second nature. You start explaining it to others. You build confidence through repetition. This is how mastery begins, not with perfection, but with persistent effort. You also become less susceptible to misinformation. When you don't know, it's easy to fall for scams, bad advice, or trends that promise fast money but deliver long-term damage. But when you're obsessed with learning, you vet everything. You ask hard questions. You don't jump at every opportunity. You research, you compare, you analyze. You're no longer guided by hype, but by principles, and that makes you resilient. Most importantly, this love for learning gives you something that no one can take away. Markets can crash, jobs can disappear, businesses can fail. But the knowledge you've acquired, the wisdom you've built, that stays with you. It's embedded in how you think, how you decide, how you adapt. It becomes your competitive edge. In a world that changes rapidly, those who keep learning stay ahead. If you found yourself reading more, asking more, digging deeper, and constantly seeking to upgrade your understanding of the world, celebrate that. You are doing something the majority of people never do. You're actively preparing for success. And that preparation isn't passive, it compounds. Every book you read, every lesson you internalize, every failure you analyze, these are investments in your most valuable asset, you. So yes, being obsessed with learning is a sign you're on the path to wealth. But more than that, it's the engine that will carry you there. Wealth may start with the desire for money, but it's built through the daily choice to grow, to study, to adapt, and to never stop becoming wiser than you were yesterday. That's how real wealth is made, not just in your bank account, but in your mind. And once you've built it there, everything else can follow. Another unmistakable sign that you're walking the path to wealth is when you begin to build multiple streams of income. This shift in how you earn money is not just tactical, it represents a transformation in your mindset. Instead of relying solely on a paycheck from a single job, you start to realize that real financial security and freedom come from creating various ways for money to flow into your life. You no longer want all your financial eggs in one basket. You want options. You want protection. You want leverage. And more importantly, you want to create a system where money is working for you even when you're not working for it. In the early stages, this may begin with just a side hustle. Maybe you take on freelance work, sell products online, or start monetizing a skill you've developed. It might seem small at first, but the act of earning money outside of your primary job is a psychological breakthrough. Suddenly, you realize that you're not bound by a fixed salary or a corporate ladder. You're capable of generating income through your own initiative, creativity, and effort. That realization is incredibly empowering. Eventually, the idea of relying on only one income stream begins to feel dangerous. You start to see that if you lose that one job, or if your employer downsizes, your entire financial life could collapse. Wealthy people understand this risk intuitively. They don't just aim for financial growth, they plan for financial resilience. Multiple income streams serve as a financial defense system. If one dries up, the others continue to support you. It's like having several rivers feeding your financial reservoir instead of just one. You stop living in fear of the what-ifs because you've built a system designed to endure uncertainty. You also begin to recognize that not all income is created equal. There's earned income, where you trade time for money, and then there's passive income, where money comes in with minimal day-to-day effort. And while earned income can be powerful, it has limitations. You can only work so many hours in a day. There's a ceiling to how much energy you can expend. But with passive income, whether it's from rental properties, dividend-paying stocks, royalties, digital products, or automated businesses, you start to create a reality where money continues to flow in even when you're asleep, on vacation, or spending time with family. That's when freedom begins. This doesn't mean building multiple streams of income is easy. It requires effort, discipline, and a willingness to experiment. Sometimes you'll try things that don't work. You might launch a product that flops or invest in something that doesn't deliver returns. But every attempt teaches you something. Every experience sharpens your instincts. You learn what you enjoy, what you're good at, and what has real potential to scale. And over time, you stop being discouraged by failure. You understand that failure is just data. It's feedback that helps you refine your strategy and get closer to what works. You also start to think like an entrepreneur, even if you don't consider yourself one. You look for opportunities. You start paying attention to problems that need solving, gaps in the market, or underutilized assets you own. You might see potential in renting out a room in your house, offering consulting services in your field, or selling digital guides based on your expertise. You begin to see the world differently, not just as a place to earn a paycheck, but as a place filled with untapped income potential. And as you build more streams, something shifts inside you, your confidence grows. You begin to understand your financial power. You're no longer dependent on one source. You're diversified, you're agile, and that flexibility opens doors. It gives you room to breathe, to plan, to take calculated risks. Maybe it means you can leave a toxic job or start a business full-time or travel more often. The additional income doesn't just expand your wallet, it expands your choices. Multiple streams of income also help you grow wealth more quickly. Because when you have more than one source of income, you can allocate money strategically. One stream might cover your living expenses, while another goes directly into savings, investments, or debt repayment. You gain the ability to fast-track your financial goals, whether that's buying a home, starting a company, or retiring early. And the best part is, the more you reinvest your income into assets that produce even more income, the more you create a compounding effect that accelerates your path to financial freedom. There's also a psychological benefit that can't be overstated. When you're building multiple income streams, you feel more in control of your future. You don't just hope for a raise or wait for someone else to decide your worth. You take ownership of your income. You create it. You grow it. You build systems that pay you for your ideas, your energy, and your willingness to act. That kind of empowerment bleeds into every area of your life. You also become more skilled along the way. Every new income stream requires you to learn something: how to market a product, how to build an audience, how to negotiate, how to manage time, how to handle taxes, how to scale. These aren't just financial skills, they're life skills. And they stack. The more you learn, the more capable you become. The more capable you become, the more confident you get. Eventually, it feels less like you're chasing money and more like you're building something sustainable and meaningful. And let's not forget the long-term view. Wealthy individuals understand that income is only one part of the equation. What you do with it matters just as much. So while you're building multiple streams of income, you also start being more intentional with how you use that income. You save it, you invest it. You use it to create or acquire more assets that can produce even more income. It's a cycle, a flywheel, that once in motion begins to spin faster and faster. That's how wealth is built, not just by earning more, but by multiplying what you earn in smart and sustainable ways. Eventually, you begin to design your life around these streams. You might decide to build a portfolio of small businesses, automate a few income sources, or create a mix of active and passive streams that give you both freedom and fulfillment. You stop living paycheck to paycheck, not just because you earn more, but because you've changed your entire financial framework. You've stopped thinking in terms of scarcity and started thinking in terms of abundance. So if you're working on your second, third, or even fourth source of income, no matter how small it may seem right now, understand this: you're already doing what most people never even attempt. You're expanding your income potential, your financial intelligence, and your independence. And more importantly, you're building a future where your finances aren't dictated by a single employer or a single stream. You're designing a life of freedom, security, and choice, one income stream at a time. There comes a pivotal moment on the journey to wealth when your relationship with time changes completely. You begin to realize that time, not money, is your most valuable asset. It becomes clear that while you can always earn more money, you can never earn more time. Every second that passes is gone forever. This realization may seem subtle, but it dramatically shifts how you move through the world. It transforms your decisions, your habits, and your entire outlook on life and wealth. When you start to respect time more than money, that's when you know you're walking the path of the truly wealthy. At first, this shift is internal. You begin to evaluate where your time is going. You notice how much of it is spent on things that don't move you forward. Distractions, pointless conversations, mindless scrolling, obligations that drain rather than uplift you. You start asking questions. Is this how I want to spend my time? Does this help me grow? Does this get me closer to my goals? These aren't the kinds of questions everyone asks, but wealthy-minded individuals do constantly. They don't waste time because they understand its true value. You begin prioritizing tasks that bring long-term rewards instead of temporary gratification. You'd rather spend an hour learning a skill that could serve you for life than spend it indulging in momentary entertainment. It's not about being rigid or joyless, it's about being intentional. You start designing your days around what matters most. You begin planning. You set clear goals, not just for the next week or month, but for the next 5 or 10 years. And you use your time like a sculptor uses tools, carefully, deliberately, with the end result in mind. This respect for time starts to affect how you handle money as well. You no longer see money as something you just earn and spend. You see it as a tool to buy back time. You start outsourcing tasks that drain your energy but don't require your unique skills. You hire someone to clean your house, manage your calendar, or edit your videos, not because you're too good for those tasks, but because your time is better spent on higher value activities. You realize that it's not about doing everything yourself, it's about doing the things that only you can do and delegating the rest. You also begin to understand that time lost to procrastination is far more expensive than any financial cost. So you stop delaying the things that matter. You stop putting off important conversations, decisions, and projects. You understand that some day is not a day of the week. If something will make a difference in your future, you do it now. If it scares you, you face it. You no longer let fear or comfort dictate your schedule. You let purpose lead the way. As you grow, you also start to protect your time more fiercely. You say no more often, you set boundaries. You become selective about the people you allow into your space, not because you think you're better, but because you understand that your time is limited and how you spend it shapes who you become. Every invitation, every meeting, every commitment is weighed against its potential to either elevate you or distract you. This level of discernment may seem extreme to some, but to you, it's simply self-respect. Another key aspect of this shift is how you approach learning and growth. You no longer waste time reinventing the wheel. You invest in coaching, courses, books, and mentors, not just for the knowledge, but to accelerate your progress. You understand that a single insight from the right person could save you months or even years of trial and error. You don't see these investments as expenses, you see them as time machines. Anything that helps you move faster, smarter, or with more clarity is worth its cost tenfold. Because you're not just trying to succeed, you're trying to succeed efficiently. Your respect for time also affects your financial strategy. You stop chasing quick wins and focus instead on long-term wealth. You invest with patience. You understand the power of compound interest, not just in money, but in habits, relationships, and personal development. You don't need immediate results to stay motivated because you know that real wealth takes time to build. You play the long game, and in doing so, you separate yourself from the masses who are constantly chasing shortcuts. Even your consumption habits change. You become mindful of what you read, watch, and listen to. You curate your inputs because you know that time spent consuming garbage leads to mental clutter. Instead of drowning in meaningless content, you seek depth. You value wisdom over entertainment, and as a result, your thinking becomes sharper, your decisions more aligned, your actions more powerful. You may also notice that your conversations become more intentional. You seek people who respect your time, who add value, who challenge and inspire you. You don't have the patience for gossip, negativity, or shallow small talk. You want to build, to learn, to share. You realize that wealth isn't just a solo pursuit, it's also about surrounding yourself with people who elevate your thinking and push you toward excellence. The time you spend with such people isn't a cost, it's an investment. And this new relationship with time doesn't just impact your work, it reshapes how you live. You begin to prioritize experiences that matter, time with loved ones, moments of joy, travel, peace, and reflection. You recognize that wealth without fulfillment is empty. So while you work hard, you also carve out time to rest and recharge. You're not interested in being endlessly busy. You're interested in being effective and present. You don't want to just accumulate money. You want to build a meaningful life. Eventually, you come to understand a deeper truth. The wealthy don't just earn more. They live differently. They view time as a non-renewable resource. They align their days with their values. They choose quality over quantity. They don't chase everything. They focus on what moves the needle. And the more you embrace this mindset, the more your life begins to reflect it. So if you find yourself becoming more protective of your time, more thoughtful with your choices, more intentional in how you live, recognize it for what it is. It's not just personal growth, it's financial maturity. It's a powerful sign that you're on the path to real sustainable wealth. Because when you start treating time like the rare and precious asset it is, everything else begins to fall into place. One of the most powerful indicators that you're on the path to wealth is that you have a clear vision for your future. This isn't just a vague idea of wanting to be rich or successful. It's a focused, detailed, and emotionally compelling picture of where you're headed, financially, professionally, personally. It's a vision that lives in your mind so vividly that it begins to shape your daily behavior, your habits, your choices. This kind of clarity is not common, and it doesn't appear overnight. It's born from self-reflection, intentional planning, and a strong desire to create something better for yourself and the people you care about. When you can see your future with that kind of precision, you're no longer drifting, you're driving. You're no longer reacting, you're creating. Having a clear vision is like having a compass in a forest. It gives you direction even when you don't yet know every step of the journey. It keeps you aligned when life tries to pull you off course. Without a vision, it's easy to get distracted by short-term pleasures or discouraged by temporary setbacks. But with a vision, you have something bigger pulling you forward. It becomes your internal GPS, constantly recalculating, adjusting, guiding you toward your goal no matter the terrain. When you have that vision, you wake up with purpose. You don't just stumble through the day hoping to be productive. You start your day with intention. You know what you're working toward. You know what matters and what doesn't. Your time becomes more precious, your focus becomes sharper, and your sense of urgency increases. You stop wasting hours on things that have nothing to do with your long-term goals. You say no to distractions more easily, not out of obligation, but because your future is calling and you're committed to answering that call. People who are on the path to wealth aren't just living for today, they're building for tomorrow. They have financial goals that are tied to life goals. Maybe they want to retire early, fund their children's education, travel the world, or leave a legacy. Whatever the dream is, it's not random. It's specific. It's personal. It has meaning. And because it has meaning, it gives fuel to every sacrifice, every late night, every moment of discipline that others can't understand. They're not just chasing money, they're pursuing a mission. This vision doesn't have to be set in stone. It can evolve. In fact, it should evolve as you grow and learn more about what truly matters to you. But what stays constant is your willingness to think long-term. You've moved past the instant gratification mindset. You understand that true wealth is rarely built overnight. It's a product of sustained focus, smart decisions, and compounded effort over years. So you plan accordingly. You invest not only in assets, but in skills, in networks, in yourself. You stop looking for magic solutions and start building real foundations. When you have a clear vision, it also shapes your financial decisions in a deeper way. You're not spending impulsively anymore. You're not buying things just to impress others or fill a void. You're aligning your spending with your goals. You might skip the luxury car or the expensive vacation today because you're funding something more meaningful, your freedom, your business, your future lifestyle. You're not depriving yourself. You're prioritizing with purpose. And that clarity gives you peace. You stop feeling like you're behind or like you're missing out because you know exactly where you're going and you know why. This vision also begins to influence the people you associate with. You naturally start gravitating toward others who are also future-focused, who are building, striving, and growing. You want to be around people who challenge you, inspire you, hold you accountable. And you distance yourself from people who drain your energy, who complain without acting, who can't see beyond the weekend. Not because you're judgmental, but because you understand that the people around you either lift you higher or hold you back. And your vision is too important to compromise. What's remarkable is how this clarity changes your confidence. When you know where you're going, you stop second-guessing yourself so much. You stop needing validation from everyone else. You trust your gut more. You take risks more boldly, not recklessly, but strategically. You understand that not every decision will be perfect, but every decision made in service of your vision brings you closer to it. You learn to live with setbacks and see them as part of the journey. You stop seeing failure as a wall and start seeing it as a stepping stone. There's also a quiet joy that comes with having a clear vision. It's not just about the destination, it's about how you feel on the way there. You feel grounded, you feel motivated, you feel like your life has structure and direction. Even when things get hard, and they will, you have something to hold on to. That inner picture of your future becomes a source of strength. It gives meaning to your hustle. It gives dignity to your struggle. It makes all the difference. Your vision might include owning a business that gives you financial freedom, or building a portfolio that pays you passive income, or creating something that outlives you. It could be about buying your dream home, giving back to your community, or creating time to be fully present with your family. Whatever your version of wealth looks like, the clearer that picture becomes, the more you will move toward it. Your brain starts filtering opportunities through the lens of that future. You start seeing possibilities you never noticed before. You start connecting dots. And slowly but surely, the vision you once imagined becomes the reality you live in. And that's the essence of wealth creation. Not just working hard, not just making money, but having a purpose that pulls you forward. Wealth isn't just numbers in a bank account. It's a life by design, not by default. And design starts with vision. So if you find yourself thinking deeply about your future, setting long-term goals, and aligning your daily habits with a bigger picture, you are already on the path. You're doing what most never do, thinking ahead, planning intentionally, and living purposefully. You're not reacting to life, you're leading it. That kind of clarity doesn't just predict wealth, it creates it. One decision, one habit, one vision-driven day at a time